put questions or comments in the chat or in the Q&A box, and we'll be answering questions toward the end of the program. We would also love to hear where you're joining us from. So if you can write in the chat where you're calling in from, that would be great. And now I'm going to introduce our guests. We have Simone Jacques. She's a Black feminist from San Francisco. She's from Mexican and Caribbean background, and she's rooted in youth and community activism. We also have Xavier Brown, 19 years old, from Oakland. Xavier is going into his sophomore year at UCLA as an acting major. Very impressive. One of the two organizers of the June 1st March. He has a clothing brand called Brightside and a film company called Magnum Opus Media. And we also have Akil Riley, also 19 years old. Akil is a rising sophomore at Howard University and a political science major from Oakland, California. He is a musician and recording artist. And I'm very happy to tell you about who will be moderating the conversation today. We have Veronica Garcia. She works for the San Francisco Human Rights Commission, supporting several youth and community-focused initiatives. She is also a proud San Francisco native, mother to two beautiful young women, a graduate of the College of Ethnic Studies at San Francisco State University, and the daughter of immigrants. So please join me in welcoming Simone, Akil, Xavier, and Veronica.
Great. Thank you so much, Elizabeth, for this incredible opportunity and privilege to be in conversation with these amazing young people. Some things that I think are really important to preface as we have this conversation is that, I really believe that young people are already amazing. And if adults would just move out of the way, you all will lead as you have been. And so, really want to also set the tone to highlight this is not, a conversation meant to tokenize young people or to really, say these young people are amazing because look at what they did, but rather this is how amazing they are. And they are also these other things and hold these other identities and do these other really incredible things. And so I'm not going to talk too much, but want to make sure to highlight, a few things with them today so they can share a little bit about themselves. So we'll start with Simone today. If you can please share a little bit about yourself, your background, your family, your community experiences, and then we'll go to Akil and Xavier.
Hi, everyone. I'm Simone. I grew up in San Francisco in the Mission. So my parents immigrated. My mom is from Mexico, so they immigrated here in the mid-60s, and we've been here ever since. And I grew up in a household with my abuela and my mom, so I was primarily raised by women, and I think that has definitely affected the work that I do, because I truly believe that, women make the world go round, and I think it's really important to stand in solidarity with all women. So I grew up with women who were just empowering and encouraging and telling me that, I could really do whatever I want. And I think that a lot of women, especially Black women, aren't fortunate to hear that. And my dad is from Haiti, so he immigrated here in probably the 60s as well, and grew up in New York. So I have backgrounds from just two parents who grew up in an urban environment and who community organized all their life because they have to. I mean, they're from communities where it's really important to organize and to establish love amongst one another, because our systems don't necessarily encourage that. So finding that family amongst people who look like you has always been really important for me. I grew up doing a ton of youth programs. I danced in Local Bloco since I was 7 years old. And so I participate in Carnival every year. And their focus, their statement was saving the mission, fighting gentrification in the mission. So I think from a very early age, I understood that brown and Black neighborhoods were not protected unless it was by the people in their neighborhoods. And also understanding the intersection of art in terms of self-expression for oneself individually, but also in a community aspect of like showing love for one another. And I also participated in Young Gifted and Black, which is an Oakland organization. And I grew up doing spoken word with them, which I think was really pivotal for me in understanding my Black identity and understanding what it is to be a Black woman in America, and that I also have a voice. So it's a little about me.
Thank you, Simone. Akil?
Yeah, so as you all know, my name is Akil, 19 years old, grew up in West Oakland, California. Parents both from Oakland. Granddad was a civil rights activist from the South, but later moved to the Bay. Pretty famous civil rights activist. Also an attorney. Did a lot for the city of Oakland. Same with my uncle as a political artist, and very influential in the Oakland community and in that scene, political scene, in the real radical revolutionary scene. My dad also had an impact on me, and to for my ability to critically think and be critical also of authority. I think that would be the biggest thing. So being politically aware is a part of me because I grew up in the household and it was at the conversations at the dinner table and all that. But I also was I ran track in high school. That was the main thing. I also did music. I've been playing piano since I was 10. So that's a big part of me. Music is a big part of me. I make music now. My high school, I guess, experience was pretty average where I graduated from tech. But I volunteered also for the Cat Bricks for Mayor campaign. So I've been always politically active, but also did my hand in other areas of interest. I'm a human being. Grew up in a lower income neighborhood family. But one thing I want to say about that is that I think that is what produces like real, I guess what you would say, real creativity and greatness. So the level of I had a different perception of the world based on my situation and my environment, and which helped me shape a better perception of the world. I've always been critical of police. Always been empathetic, and that just comes from my experiences, what I've seen, what I'm around. I guess you would call it. We got the on the spectrum of oppression or the spectrum of America and standard of living. When you're on one side of it, you kind of see things differently, and you kind of feel the I guess the knee on your back. So I felt that, and that's why I have a kind of very critical viewpoint of government and of authority, and I help shape throughout who I am. So I'm not really one who listens, I would say, and tries to break barriers all the time by being me.
Thank you, Akil. Xavier?
Yeah, hi. My name is Xavier Brown. I grew up in a Caribbean household. My mom is from Trinidad and my dad is from St. Lucia. So I always had that a culture in me. My mom is a lawyer. She has fought against elderly abuse, child abuse, domestic violence. and she's extremely educated. So education was always a huge part in my family. And I always tried to educate myself on everything from, history, politics, you know, anything that has to do with how I will live my life in the future. And then, of course, my her dad was a professional swimmer, so I think sports was always heavily enforced into me, and with that came a sense of leadership and a determination, but also a discipline and a dedication. Um, and I think with those tools, I think that that's the reason why that I was, I've always been driven to try to lead. I've always been driven to try and fight for what I believe in, and a strive for a justice. And in terms of activism, even though my mom has always been a part of law, she joined the law simply to try and reform the law from the inside, as a Black woman. And I've always looked up to that, and I've always, you know, thought that I had to be a certain age to try and um, fight for justice and do those certain things. But I think in doing this, it made me realize that I don't have to be a certain age, and that even people that are younger than me, like Simone, can truly lead the future of the youth. So yeah, no, it was very important to do that, and I had to do it as a Black man, in a country that constantly, hates and oppresses. I feel like we all have a duty to fight for what we believe in. And in this case, it kind of felt like I was fighting for my life, my brother's life, uh, my a friend's life. Like we all could have been George Floyd, Tamir Rice, Trayvon Martin. Like that could have been any of us. So truly, we are fighting for each other. So I think that that's what really drove me to be a part of this.
Thank you so much, Xavier. There is already so many things that I want to tap into with you all and ask more about, and make sure that the folks that are joining us from Washington, D.C., New Jersey, Oakland, all around the nation really can hear from you. And so I want to make sure to really ask you, in the planning for the marches that you each did, what was that like? What inspired you to do that, especially given the current pandemic and shelter in place, COVID-19? I would love to hear from you, Simone, and then Akil and Xavier, if you can share a little bit about that experience.
I think my whole life has kind of been like a prep for organizing, and that I have been organizing like since I was little, because whether that's from like trying to get like my girlfriends together to do like homegirl book club, or like trying to do certain things because I just wasn't invited into certain spaces or heard in certain spaces. And for me, it felt like, Xavier mentioned it, it's not necessarily an option or a choice for us. And unfortunately, I've had people say things like, it's really great what you're doing, but then also acknowledge that like this burden of taking it on at such a young age, and like of just this burden that like our parents and our parents' parents wish that we wouldn't carry. And so for me, organizing was about thinking of like my children and my children's children and, you know, my uncles, my tios and my dad and like just the people who I love and the people who are around me, and being so fed up and so angry and so enraged that people refuse to listen to Black women, to Black trans women, that it's just like enough is enough. And so initially I saw Akil post his flyer for the march, and we had talked about it, and he was saying, you know, like, this is Oakland, like this is the Panthers, like, and there's nothing happening right now and we need to show solidarity. And I was like, you're right. And same goes for San Francisco. Like, San Francisco has had so many cases of police violence and police murders, from Mario Woods to Sean Monterosa. So it needed to happen. And I felt like I know the people that I surround myself with would be 110% willing to be there and to, you know, fight for my life and to fight for George Floyd's life and to just show up and make noise and make space for women like me and for Black men and for Black trans women. So I think the process of organizing, initially I just posted like on my Instagram, like who would be down to help me organize or like who would show up. And I got responses from a couple people and I just kind of ran with it. And they were like, hey, like it started off on such a small scale. Like it started off from like one of my girlfriends being like, I know somebody who can get you a caracol because we didn't have access to megaphones. So we're like, okay, what can we do? And so that big shell that you can use to gather people's attention. And that was literally it. Like that was the first conversation we had. Like, oh, I know this person who can link you to a resource. And then after that, it was like another friend of mine, he was like, I can make a flyer. And he made a flyer. And then the flyer went viral. And then we had people reaching out to us with resources. And so it kind of just took off. And like, we had challenges of just safety and having death threats from like white supremacists and like having to navigate that. And it really made me appreciate just and see the extent of which people who you don't know completely, who like you didn't meet in a social setting, can be so down for you and offer so much love and like communal care and like what solidarity actually looks like. And just people who are like with it from the get, like just and you guys kind of everybody has their role in this, and learning when to step up and step back and learning when to amplify somebody's voice and using your privilege. And like I think just the extent of communication that was so vital, and like us being like, I can handle this. Oh, okay, you're doing that, I'll do this. And like building on top of each other. I couldn't have done it without other organizers, you know, because we all contributed something. And so I think it kind of just fell into place very seamlessly because we all had each other's back. And like, I remember talking to an organizer after, and she was like, she told me, she's like, I stayed and waited until every single person left the starting point from Mission High School. And she was like, it was 30 minutes. And I stayed with the police scanner and I made sure that there were undercovers that didn't come in. And I didn't even know that until like a week after the protest. And it's like people really having your back without even having to second guess it. And so I think that was my experience. And with the people who I know are down for me and who I'm down for, we will continue this fight.
Thank you, Simone. Akil?
Well, just building off what she said at first, the inspiration, what prompted me to do this is really just a collection of events that happened over the span of my lifetime. And well, just obviously, and being Black and feeling all the oppression that our country has to offer. So it was just more of a direct response to that, just like a cry out. That was really it at the end of the day. I didn't think of it. I mean, it's organizing, but there's something. It's not as much organizing as it is just a cry for like help or passion. Not even a cry for help, but to want to bring attention to this. Really, like what I said. We set out at first when I talked to Xavier about it, was just we want like I just Oakland isn't saying anything. Oakland, we like I want to show them that we stand with you and to bring justice to this, or not to bring attention to this, saying that we're not gonna let it slide. You know, my idea is like every time like all right, man, we're not this something's about to happen, and this is not going. We're not gonna let this happen ever again to the best of our ability. So it was more just it was more a human feeling I I just wanted to like it's a you know what's happening is that police violence is a like direct um outcome of capitalist America, and that's it. And I'm just but I'm fed up with like seeing people getting killed and seeing us getting killed, and I felt pain from that. That's really what it is at the end of the day. It's no political. You don't have to be no Harvard law graduate to feel that pain. That's just what it was. And it's a direct police violence. It's just well, it's not really uh, answer your question, but a direct outcome of capitalist America, like I just said. So that process was just for me. I in the way I perceive things in my mind, it was simple for me. We released a flyer, a date, time, and location, and then organizers started reaching out to us, and which is when I thanked them for that. Um, Other organizations too. Um, and I wanted to use that platform to say what I felt, to give some inspiration to people, but to let them know what was really going on. And hopefully just add to the movement, of the many people doing things, many organizers, thousands of organizers throughout America. I'm just one of them. But ours got a lot of attention, and the attention that I guess it deserved, and that I kind of wasn't expecting it, but it's good to bring attention to this subject. Um, and it was pretty simple for me. We had some like things that we had to discuss that might have taken some time, but the message was clear from the beginning, and everything just took care of itself.
Thank you, Akil. Xavier, anything you want to add?
Yeah. So as Akil was saying, the root of it was to let people know that Oakland stands with George Floyd and his community. And what it became is giving the a community a voice, and showing that you can also show your pain and anger through words. And although it might not be a peaceful, because a lot of people called our protest a peaceful, but I don't think that what we were doing was very peaceful. You know what I mean? Our words came from anger and pain, and that's usually not from a source of peace. So, um, yeah, no. In terms of organizing it, it was a lot. It was a first time thing that Akil and I were doing, but like um we never thought that what we were doing was too much, and we never thought that it would overwhelm us to the point of us quitting, you know, because no matter what, we were going to do this. Like we had to, like we felt the need to. Um, we can't just let someone, not just one a person, but we can't just let our community of Black people be silenced and abused and hated for so long without doing anything about it as a Black person. You know what I mean? So, we truly felt the need for it. And although it was overwhelming, I would do it 10 times over. You know, like it 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 really gave me a sense of proudness and community in Oakland. I wouldn't say I don't really like saying that it gave me um, hope, but per se, because it was a solemn time, and it still is, but it made me proud. It made me proud to see like all different races and all different age groups come out for this one cause that Akil and I, um, you know, are so passionate about. So yeah.
It also one thing I want to say, I feel like as it sparked um it helped spark the movement or add fire to it too. I don't think a lot of these things will be a lot of will like they just got rid of rubber bullets in San Francisco and tear gas. Like that wouldn't happen without Simone and her organizer, the other organizers involved with that. Like um, that's one step closer. It's one step in the right direction, I would say. Like, and that wouldn't happen without like disruption. Really, what is the main thing? Like, it's like at the end of the day, one of the fundamental things of like how Black people have gotten anything in this country is through disruption. Like, there's never been a time like I always say this. It's where we got anything by asking for a change of heart and through voting, like like through I'd say like so it's important to be out in the streets and disrupt and it, this power of nonviolence. There's a power in nonviolence, but there's also a power in they label it violence, but what it really is a cry for help and like I'm reading a book. I can't quote the exact person, but like the who's it's a quote within a quote, but like these like the riots or whatever are like um I'm paraphrasing, but we have at some point like people have nothing to lose really, and they would rather die for what they die to be heard than to so it's not violent it's not violence is what they label it as. That's not what it is. It's just it's an act of lawfulness in response to the lawfulness that the oppressed are feeling, and because our country is unlawful to us, and I can't get my thoughts together right now.
I have more questions for you, and the audience does too. So maybe we'll pause there and segue into the next question. I really, really want to acknowledge you all. Like I mentioned earlier, you're already amazing, right? And hold so many different identities. And what's important is that you're also highlighting what leadership looks like. It's not based on the number of followers you have on Instagram or Twitter, but rather, what does it actually look like to lead with empathy, to see the humanity in other people, to want to make real change, right? And by that, actually taking it to the street and being in solidarity with folks that may not have the same background as you, or and by that I mean the trans women, right, Simone, that you've mentioned several times. So even being able to amplify that. And so this next question, before we segue into questions from the audience, is really around what do you need from others, right? We have folks joining us from Washington, D.C., government officials, community members, folks probably around the same age as you. What do you need from others? What are ways that folks can tap in and support you and support this movement? Simone?
I think this is a hard question that we're navigating just because, like I said, everybody has their role. And so understanding when to step up and step back. And so I think there needs to, I went to this event a couple days ago that my friend hosted for artists and community members who felt the need to express themselves and contribute to this revolution in a way that's feasible for them, and that was art. And so they were expressing themselves, and I thought that was really beautiful. But I think it's learning how to set up spaces to amplify certain voices. And these women were speaking, and they passed out these packets, and they were talking about how a community is not a community unless you have every single type of person there. And so I think it's really important for people to understand that representation needs to happen in our communities, or else that's not solidarity. And we're not free unless everybody is free. And so I think as we continue to do this work, it's like keeping in mind like the people whose voices aren't being heard. And I think as far as like allies and people wanting to support, I think one way is economically reinvesting money into Black and Brown and Indigenous communities, whether that's through donating to certain funds. Like there's a ton of support for Black trans women, for like there's just a ton of like GoFundMe's like going around, and like there's places that you can economically support these people when economic violence is something that has been inflicted on Brown and Black and Indigenous people. And so it's not just like about showing up in the streets. And if you can't do that, then okay, well, it's about what's accessible to you. So if you're a seamstress making masks, like we've had so many donations from I forget their coalition, but we had a group of women who make masks donate a ton. And so I think those are ways that people can support. And also in terms of like orgs and nonprofits, I think offering resources, not asking for our voices. I think I have gotten an overwhelming amount of people like reaching out to me about, we want you to speak here, like we want you to speak there, like we want you to do this for us. And I think one thing is that we have to be in control of our narrative. And we are people who are not often listened to. So when I release information, it will be on my terms. It's not going to be through like a certain interview with people asking me like specifics, because that gives them the ability to control our narrative. So I think in terms of like, for example, like one really helpful, something that was extremely important in terms of organizing the protest in San Francisco was I was reached out to by, they're not a part of nonprofits, but they all work in nonprofits. And so they provided a police liaison for us and marshals and medics. And we were contacted by people in the medical fields who are studying to become doctors. And they came and showed up and provided their services. And so I think those are ways in which people can contribute without trying to say their piece. Because I don't think that everybody needs to say their piece. I think that there are specific people who need to be heard. And as far as like for adults, I think, I said this thing the other day that's like, if you're over 30 or you're not Angela Davis, you're not allowed to offer me an opinion or tell me what I can and cannot do. Because as a Black woman, as a young Black woman, my whole entire life has people been telling me like, that's really good. Like, I'm really proud of you. But I don't really know if that's like logical or if that can actually happen or if you can actually do that. And I'm not asking for permission at this point. So I think just making room for our voices.
Thank you. I'm like trying to snap over here and all the things and just, yes. We'll go to Xavier. I'm sorry. We'll go to Xavier and then Akil. See how excited I am?
Man, Simone, man, you got some really, really great points. Miss Veronica, do you think you can tell me exactly what the question is so I don't like uh,
Of course.
get anything wrong?
So just again, wanting to make sure to amplify your voices and what it is that you need from adults, those of us that are over
Yeah,
30, right? And others in terms of supporting you in this movement.
yeah. Well, for one, I want to thank the people who are over 30 years old for paving the way and teaching us, how to function in society. It truly takes a village to raise a child. So, for one, I want to thank you for that. I think that as people get older, they usually become more wise through experiences. And usually, when that happens, they are more closed off to what people have to say because they believe that because they've lived certain experiences, they know better than others. And usually, those others are younger people. And the thing is that a lot of the times, you know, everyone's life takes different experiences. So a lot of the times, a lot of younger people have more experience in certain fields than you, or they are more up to date in certain fields than you. So because of that, you truly do have to keep an open ears and an open mind to hear these young people out, you know, because right now we're living in an age of social media where people thrive off of that, where people do activism on Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, and people just function differently. And the youth are the ones that have been coming up. So in that aspect, they're more wise about that, you know. And all of our lives, we have had to keep an open ear and open mind out about what you have taught us and what you guys have tried to instill into us. So is it so bad that we try to do the same? You know, I don't think that it is. So I think that the main thing you can truly do is try to have an open ear, try to have an open mind, and don't just think something before you even come before you even hear it. Like go into a don't go into a conversation saying, okay, no matter what this person says, like I'm just not gonna agree with it. I think that's very arrogant, arrogant and ignorant when someone goes into a conversation with a completely closed mind. I don't think that's very helpful to anyone. So yeah, just an open ear, an open mind. Be a supportive of the people around you. And if you are a parent and you see your child, trying to do youth activism, please encourage that and know that you are doing something right. You are doing something right in raising a child. So yeah, that's about it.
Thank you, Xavier. Akil, and then we'll go to Elizabeth with questions from the audience, please.
Yeah, to talking about conversation, what we need we need people to conversate more about these issues. I'm talking about our peers. I just want to say I agree with everything that's been said before. I don't want to reiterate anything, but it kind of seems like taboo to talk about these certain subjects, especially just in our peer groups, but also from my experience in college. I'm not trying to bash my university or whatever, but it's not really it doesn't seem like it's a taboo to talk about these issues. That maybe that's just me for being from California and being from Oakland. I don't know, but let's conversate on this more. Let's call each other out for stuff. Let's educate each other. Let's stop in the. I mean, there's other things to talk about, but things are, as a lot of things are so like fast cooked because of social media. Our attention span might be shorter. So continue to keep focus on what's important. Also keep in mind like the common goal, or keep in mind the long-term goal. We can't be fooled by propaganda and American exceptionalism propaganda and like heavy like reform propaganda. Um, um, things like a police officer kneeling or justice being served to those individual cops, like and like what I said before about the police system. The prison industrial complex, it runs off of short-term problems, like somebody going to jail. That's not for whatever crime. That's not fixing the issue of crime. That's just fixing that one incident. It's gonna keep going on. So justice does feel good, and to get those cops arrested. I'm kind of conflicted, but it's like that we got to keep going past that. So there is, I guess, what I think we need to understand is that there's going to be some reform in like the broader like idea of revolution, because that's just how it is. That's how we keep moving. It's like a smaller circle within a bigger circle. So I'm trying to visualize it. So, but keep in terms. So just don't get fooled by these false senses of hope from these short-term things.
If I could add on, I just think it's important understanding, like, I live in a household of 3 different generations of women. So some things carry over and then some things don't. And it's understandable because we've all been raised in institutions and in these systems that promote capitalism and that basically are saying that as people of color and as Black people and Indigenous people, you are only worthy if you are productive. And I think it's really important to understand that, first of all of the media in the country is owned by like 3 people, basically. It's like 2 or 3 people like who run all of the media in this entire country and who are able to control the narratives however they see fit to their own opinion. And I think that growing up with, I think in some ways our generation has a fresher perspective because we're building off of radical ideas, but I don't believe in reform. I believe in deconstructing and then creating systems that are meant for Black and Indigenous people and people of color. And I think a lot of older generations, because they've been brainwashed in these systems, like I have, like so many other people have, like every single person has, still has faith in these imperialistic systems that the US propagates. So I think that understanding where we're coming from and not misconstruing our goal and our focus. When I say abolish police, I don't mean like, you don't actually mean abolish. No, I mean abolish police. Like, I mean, we don't need police. We can have mental health physicians who are able to deal with people who are having mental health issues and who need some sort of attention. Or we can have people who are trained in de-escalation. Police aren't trained in de-escalation. They're trained in basically the highest risk. So they're not able to assess risk because the only thing that they're trained in is protecting themselves, not communities. it takes twice as long to become a cosmetologist and to get your cosmetology license than it does to go through police training. So I don't believe in these systems that were built on Indigenous and Black bodies and by Black people. So I think that it's important to acknowledge that the establishment of the United States carries itself till now, and that we are all brainwashed and we all need to decolonize ourselves and our mindsets and understand that these systems were not built for us, period. So I think that adults who, believe in these political structures have to reevaluate where these political structures were born and why these political structures were born and why Black people were brought to this country. It was purely for economic growth. Why the Civil War happened. It wasn't because they wanted to abolish slavery. It was because the South had more power and they needed to economically balance it between the North and the South. So, yeah, these institutions are built for us.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on real a quick. I think with that, I think people need to learn how to educate themselves because, as Simone said, a lot of a lot of people do not know about the history, the true history of this a country. I'm not talking about the history of books that you see in schools. That's a very soft, washed down history of what America truly is. And I think that in educating yourself, you will truly realize why we do have to abolish the police, fund the police, and create a new system of law that is fit for everybody. Because, as Simone said, you have to realize this country was built um, to plainly service white people. It was built to for them to succeed. They were the ones that tried to begin the Revolutionary War, and they made no mistake that it only profited them. So I think now that we have um, a melting pot of tons of different cultures and races and languages in this country, like, how can you not change that law and you know a constitution to fit all? um, and I think that it is our a duty as Black people to fight for that. um, Unfortunately, it can't truly happen under a true capitalist a system, because in capitalism there always has to be someone that is being oppressed. um, but we have to work towards abolishing that. So I think that through re-educating yourself or re-educating people around you, that you can really do that effectively.
Real quick, just add on. We also have to keep in mind the power that we have collectively, like labor-wise, but also like as a people, like as Black people, as a third world coalition. Also, as they would say, but like so our communities embrace the people that are being marginalized, maybe in different ways. As Black men recognize the privilege that we have, whatever privilege that we have over somebody else in our communities, and coming together, that would be just so much more powerful. But also, as labor unions, just the power we have, the corporate heads of corporations, they rely on us. They need us for them to fund. So to run properly. So keep that in mind. We need to organize, and when we shut things down, that's when real change starts happening, because society can't function without the people, like without us. And that's universal. That's not just in the workplace. So when we shut things down, we we can't. That's when real change starts happening.
I think that's why education is so important, because as a collective, as youth, as the melting pot, like, these systems are only going to work if we are uneducated, because these systems thrive off of us being unaware and believing in these systems, and instead of believing in ourselves. We are taught from a very young age, from the moment we are born, to believe in our government instead of believing in ourselves and in our community. And that's why we say things like, we can't affect the system, or our voice doesn't matter, because there's one of us and how many of them. But what is really important to note is that these systems are still intact from slavery and from colonization. So slavery was never abolished, it was reformed. And we have to deconstruct these systems. And it's like colonizer textbook 101. You convince the people that they are powerless and outnumbered so that they don't come together and create change. So I think that it's our job to educate each other. And I don't mean white folks, I mean each other. I mean brown and Black and Indigenous people, because we have to collectively wake up. And I think that that's what we have been seeing. I think for allies, it's your job to educate yourself, because we have had to be educated since we started interacting with people. Because how are they going to see me? How are they going to perceive me as a threat? And I think another thing is to understand is that this term violence, brown and Black people have been criminalized since day one. So no matter what we do, we will continue to be criminalized. Even if we are peacefully protesting, we will continue to be criminalized. So nonviolence and protesting, I don't think it's nonviolent. I think that's minimizing our narrative and our the point. I think, again, it's whitewashing what we're doing, and it's whitewashing our work, and it's trying to humble us so we only are perceived as like, oh, they're really not going to do anything. Like, this is a one and done situation. Like, these protests will die out, but we're mobilizing. So I think we can see that Donald Trump and all of these other white supremacists are scared because they're outnumbered.
So that's a good place to just get to one audience question. Martina Ayala asks, how do you see your role as community youth leader and organizers in the future? What are the next steps moving forward? So could each of you tell us what you see in your future as organizers and leaders?
Yes. Do you guys mind if I go first? Okay, cool. So for one, in my immediate future, I plan on speaking with the a DA, heads of police, the a mayor, on you know not only abolishing the police, but putting those funds into programs for the a Black community, and that actually will be going on in a few days. So that's in my immediate future in terms of activism and anything along those lines. In the future, I truly want to create arts programs for underprivileged communities, because I feel like in these communities there are a lot of great kids, great bright kids that have a lot of potential, but they don't have any resources to really you know succeed in the arts, if that makes sense. So I truly plan on giving these programs, whether it be in dance, acting, painting, film, photography, whatever it may be. I think that we need to have that in these underprivileged communities to try and get their I guess creative juices of flowing. I have always thought that it takes a different part of the brain to be creative, and that is essential in everything you do. Being creative is being on top of your feet. So you can apply that to whatever you may want, but I think that I owe that to my community in the future. So yeah.
Thank you, Xavier. Akil, will go to you, and Simone will end with you.
Right. I just will continue to try to have a say in my own destiny. Really, I think that's what everybody should do. Even if it's politically involved every day. There's other things that go on in life that have a real direct impact on you. So, but definitely use my voice and whatever influence I have on people to keep doing the right thing, to keep being how I am. I'm gonna continue to read more, to just up my knowledge on movements, past movements. I'm still learning. I'm 19, so that's what I'm gonna continue to do. Use a platform, I guess, of social media, to get that stuff out like I have been. And that's where I see myself, but also continuing to do the things I do and to influence people in ways that aren't directly related to like through that to politics. Like through music, or touching those kids with going through, like me going through with other things going on, and also I'm gonna continue to do that, just to get my knowledge up, and to continue doing what I have been, but hopefully in a more evolved way. I want to wish luck to you. Actually, I don't know if you know about what the Libby Schaaf actually said about defunding the police, but she's not with it. So I'm gonna see what's up with that.
I think in our immediate future, we will be continuing to protest physically and in other mediums. I think we're currently working on literature to educate other comrades, because I think it's important that we continue to release demands, but that we have resources for everybody, and these will be accessible for everyone. We'll be publishing them everywhere, and so that's what we're currently working on. But Akil said it, manifesting our own destiny, and we were talking about this term, how it was used during colonization by white people, but the difference between us manifesting our own destiny and white people is that it's ego and ours is ancestry, and we've been here and we will continue to be here, and we've never folded, so I think when people say that they don't think abolishment of these systems is possible, well, Haiti was the first country in the Western Hemisphere to free themselves. And that didn't happen without uprising, and that didn't happen without revolution. And so the revolution will continue. I think it's important to note that we are not being stagnant, we are being strategic. So just because we're not in the streets every day doesn't mean that we are not doing the work behind the scenes. Because believe me, we are on phone calls every day trying to organize and mobilize and get together. And so I think for the people who are kind of wondering what our next move is and like kind of doubting us because we're youth, we're coming. Like, trust me, we are coming for all y'all. So I think because obviously these politicians are not going to do it for us. And so we can't rely on the system to make change for us. And, you know, just because they're not endorsing abolishment doesn't mean it's not going to happen, because it's going to happen. And we first are going to start with defunding the police. First, Akil said earlier, San Francisco just bans rubber bullets and tear gas, which is under the militarization of police. But police need to not have weapons, period. So that's the first thing. Because, I mean, you look at the UK, you have to check in weapons when there is a cause for a need to be armed. You don't just have it on you. You have to check in and check out. And police do not need to have tasers and guns and like all of, you know, like they don't need to. What they need is to be trained in de-escalation, but we're going to replace police, period. After we defund them, we're going to send all of those resources to schools. And that's, I mean, again, the reason why the military and police get more funding than education programs and then access to like certain things. Flint still doesn't have clean water. I've seen like 4 apartment complexes driving around the city and homeless people are lined up on the blocks. There are vacant apartments and vacant plots of land and nobody is living there because our cities and our politicians do not care about us. There has been embezzlement of money in our city hall of San Francisco. These politicians are not going to do it for us. So it's up to us to continue to make change, and we are on the forefront. And I think that we will continue to protest. There is a protest Juneteenth that Black Youth for People's Liberation is hosting, so Akil and Xavier. And we will continue to be releasing information about what is to come. But we are mobilized, so.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on like some really quick, just like expand upon something that Simone said. For one, I think it's really important what she said about like just because, you know, we are not constantly out there does not mean that we do not have something coming. Does not mean that, you know, we aren't planning for the future. And I forgot exactly how she said it, but she said something about like, what did you say about being strategic? Like we are. Yes.
We're not stagnant. We're strategic.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. No. Like she hit it right on the nail. But the thing that I wanted to expand upon more is the need for all of these resources. And you can give the, you know, like a perfect example just in the Bay Area alone. I don't know if you guys know what Orinda is, okay? For example, Orinda is a predominantly white a town, right? That has phenomenal public schools, grocery stores, programs. They have such good public schools that I legitimately thought that when I went there to play them in basketball, I thought it was a private school. Like I legitimately thought it was a private school. everything there, like, you know, like the housing, everything is phenomenal. Because of it, they don't need a police force, because the people who live there have just a better general well-being, you know. So they don't need a large a police force. The reason why they have great schooling is because of the property taxes that are in that area. But then you know, take a look at simply East Oakland, right? You have terrible public schools. You have the main source of groceries are a corner store. You know, you have terrible streets. You don't have good recreational programs. You don't have people owning their own land. So because of that, the general well-being is just going to be lower, plain and simply. And and as a result, the government feels the need that because of that, um, people people are sometimes forced into trying to create different forms of cash flow, right? And as a result, the government feels like, okay, you know what? We put them in this terrible situation. That's great. Now let's continually police them and abuse them and murder them. This is what people don't realize. Like it started so long ago with so many problems, like redlining. You know, it started so long ago, and they were very strategic about what they wanted to do. They made no mistakes about what is going on in America, and I think we as Black people have a right to try to not to try to revolutionize by any means necessary. We have the right to do that. So I just wanted to expand upon that. That's it.
Unless Akil wants to say anything about it, I just wanted to add on and go back to like this all comes back to capitalism. And the illusion of capitalism is that everybody has access to certain things to enter the market, which is a lie, like off the bat, because Black, Brown, and Indigenous people are deprived of these resources to even enter the market at all. So when we talk about what do reparations look like, oh, owning land. It's more than just buying back the block. We have to be able to reinvest economically into each other's pockets. And so that's something that we will be doing and something how we will proceed. We're going to be fundraising. We established a GoFundMe page that already has more than 40,000K. And I think we published it 2 days before the protest. So we are going to be reinvesting back into our communities, because before Jim Crow, there was a period of time right after the Civil War where Black people owned all of their own businesses and basically had their own miniature economy. Because capitalism is not built for us, it's built to run by us and to abuse us. So and that's, again, the political and racial divisions stem completely from capitalism. Angela Davis talks about this all the time, where you convince that the laborer, that his enemy is the Black man or the Black woman, instead of the person who is employing them and taking their production methods and excavating them for resources. So nobody is benefiting from this system, because only the white elites benefit from this system. And I think, again, going back to like resources and like why we need to redistribute wealth into our communities and into access into schools and things like Xavier mentioned, food deserts. And how there's this misconception that, wow, the American dream, everybody has access to things like food and water, which isn't true. And there's this perception of a third world country when the US's imperialistic agenda has always been to plunder other countries and then categorize them as underdeveloped when they've inherently done that. And then you come back to America and we all have these resources, right? Everybody has access to this, but obviously not because of this imperialistic agenda. And I think that it's important for us as Black and brown people to stop putting our economic value into these capitalist like MNCs and corporations like Amazon, which literally profits off of us. And I was gonna say something else, but I forgot. Yeah, capitalism is the root of deprivation, and it's literally meant to starve all of us and make sure that none of us succeed.
Thank you. Akil, did you want to say anything before we finish?
I think everything has pretty much been touched on that I can say right now. That needs to be said right now.
I'm sorry, I remembered what I was gonna say. I think going back to how America communicates and understanding that this concept of power and how Black and brown people are deprived of power to make decisions and to decide the destiny of their own communities. And that's in the 10-point plan of the Black Panthers, where they talk about we are going to fight for our right to decide the destiny of our own communities. The US only operates from this idea of hard power or economic power. So if we all mobilize to stop, like boycotting isn't just like boycotting, it's a lifestyle, and it has to become a lifestyle. And we have to approach this holistically because of how the US operates and what power actually is. And economic power and political power are the two things that run this country. So if we are not investing our money, which is important, Black people literally make up the entire industry, from the sports industry to the music industry to the entertainment industry. Any single industry you can think of profits off of brown and Black people. So think about, as a collective, if we all stopped contributing our economic power to these systems that oppress us, what we could do.
Thank you all so much. I don't really even feel like you needed me here today because you all just had this amazing conversation and obviously always leading the way. There are a lot of things that I would love to add, but I just am going to be quiet and just again emphasize how grateful I am to share space with you all, to learn from you, and to really just take a seat and listen. And so really appreciate all the work that you're doing and everything that and for you to be able to tell other folks how we can support you, which I'm down to do and in solidarity with you. So I'll defer to Elizabeth to wrap up.
Yeah, I just want to echo what Veronica said. It's been such an honor to listen to everything you had to say today, and I am so ready to follow you. So we're behind you, and we'll do what we can to help you. So thank you for coming on the program today and for sharing all of your wisdom and inspiring all of us. Thank you. I do want to just end with a plug for MOAD. We have been providing all of our online programming since the shelter in place for free, and we are accepting donations. So if you want to support the museum and the work that we do, you can donate on our website, which is moadsf.org, or you can text a donation to 56512 and then type the word MOAD-SF and follow the link to donate. Thank you all so much, and I can't wait to see what comes next.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. I hope everyone goes with peace and love.
Thanks, X.
Yeah, no problem, man.
See you. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Bye.
All right.